Hey, what is up guys? I'm KBHD here, and this is the Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus. As a couple days after the announcement, we've had our chance to sort of soak it in and think about it for a little bit, and it's become pretty clear actually that it seems like this whole event, this announcement, was saved from being called the exact same phone as last year by one major feature upgrade, the camera. So that's what we're all kind of looking at right now. So while we have it, before it actually comes out, let's take a deeper look at what exactly will make this phone, apparently, different from every other phone out there. Let's take a deep look at the camera. So the Galaxy S9 has a single 12 megapixel optically stabilized camera with a variable aperture, and the Galaxy S9 Plus we have here has dual cameras, so the same primary camera and an additional secondary 2x telephoto camera fixed at f2.4. So the biggest change, obviously, at least on paper, is that variable aperture. So as I mentioned briefly in my impressions video of this phone, with a couple exceptions, pretty much every single smartphone camera out there is a fixed aperture lens, which means the aperture doesn't change. It doesn't open or close. They're letting in a certain amount of light every time to hit that sensor, and most new phones are around f2.0, sometimes f1.9 or f1.8. Pixel 2, one of the best smartphone cameras ever, has a fixed f1.8 aperture lens. So the Galaxy S9 has this dual aperture lens. It can physically switch between f1.5 wide open, which is incredible, or f2.4 depending on how much light is in the scene. So basically it'll shoot almost everything at f2.4 by default in auto, but when you get down to about 100 lux, Samsung says, which is actually pretty low light, it'll open up wide to f1.5. But if you ever actually want to make sure you're using one aperture or the other, you can go into Pro mode, and that is where one of the toggles is 1.5 or 2.4. Now, as far as the difference between the photos, I'm still evaluating that, but I have started taking back-to-back photos with the f1.5 and f2.4, and I've shared some on Twitter already, so you can make that call. If you see a difference right now, I think showing them back-to-back is what makes it more obvious. But the full analysis will be in the review for sure. So that is a pretty promising new development with the camera that we're messing with, but it's definitely not all that's new. Also new in the camera is an improved composite HDR mode. So it's now taking 12 frames and turning in photos with great dynamic range and reduced noise and better contrast. That's all in auto HDR though, so you don't have to do anything special for that. There's also the whole new sliding UI of the camera, kind of like what we've been seeing in the iPhone for years. I think it's definitely an improvement. It kind of encourages you to swipe around and explore all the different modes that you might not have even known have existed in the Samsung camera app for years. And one of the most important ones is, of course, this Pro mode. Not a whole ton to say about it other than it keeps getting better. You can change pretty much everything here. So if you're into photography, you know, your shutter speed, ISO, manual focus, white balance, and even of course that toggle for switching manually between f1.5 and f2.4. That's what I've been using to take the back-to-back comparison shots. But also new with the camera is this super slow motion video mode. Now, if you jump into the camera settings, there's actually already a ton of video frame rates to choose from. You can shoot at 4K 30 or 4K 60 frames per second. You can shoot quad HD or 1080p, even super widescreen at 18.5 by 9. And there's also a high efficiency video codec you can toggle on or off. And you might have also heard about 1080p at 240 frames per second, but that's actually hidden by default. It's strangely difficult to find. You have to go into the camera settings, edit camera modes, and then the rear camera, and then you gotta tick regular slow motion. For some reason it's unchecked and hidden by default on mine, but when you do, that's where the 1080p 240 FPS is. The more you know. But what we're really interested in, of course, is that new 960 frames per second at 720p. Other phones have done this. There's been Sony phones to do near 1,000 frames a second, but this is new to Samsung. So this will turn a 0.2 second video clip into a 6-second smooth video. Also, it will only record for 0.2 seconds. So here's how it works. First of all, it crops in a lot, so you're gonna have to back up for your framing. Be prepared for that. And then there's two ways to do it: manually or automatically. Because it's super hard to time something that's that fast to press the shutter button at the exact right moment. And you can try, and that's what the manual mode is for, but that might take a while to get the perfect action. But the automatic mode is pretty cool. It puts a box on the screen that you can move around, and then you hit start, and it'll wait until some movement enters that box to trigger the super slow motion. So you can get some pretty cool clips if you place the box perfectly where you expect the action to happen. It's not bad. All right, next up in the camera is something called AR emoji. Like I said in that impressions video, it's basically an emoji, but not as good. This one relies entirely on the front-facing camera, no extra depth sensors or anything like that. And it's closer to like Snapchat's Bitmoji than anything else, but it's still worse than that. So you take a picture of yourself and it analyzes it for like a minute or so and then turns you into a sort of animated character. And then you can further customize your character to look just like you, kinda, unless they don't have your hair. And then you have your AR emoji. It's pretty creepy if I'm being honest, but I didn't actually appreciate how smooth and accurate Apple's Animoji was until I went back after this and tried it again, and it's like way better. But I don't see many people using AR emoji past the first few days or two, maybe just for fun, but you know, here it is, it exists now. So the last thing that's new with this camera is Bixby Vision. So yes, Bixby is still a big part of Samsung's efforts, but also Bixby Vision can probably be pushed in a software update to other things like the Note and the S8, but this is what's new with that. You go into the camera app and you see this little eye, you click the eye and it'll go into this sort of recognition mode where it can offer a couple different things. QR codes, those are pretty self-explanatory, it'll read those. Wines will literally read wine bottles and tell you more about them, very specific. Places will identify where you're at and you can look around, sort of find nearby places and landmarks. And then shopping will try to identify a product by related product shots it finds on the internet and then lets you maybe buy them. Images just tries to reverse image search whatever you're looking at to find out what it is, so the closest thing to what you're looking at on Google Images. Text is pretty interesting. It uses Google Translate and will live translate any text in front of you, which could actually be helpful in real life. And the makeup section, which just switches to the front-facing camera and puts makeup on you, lets you try a bunch of different products, and then gives you a link to buy them directly. And that's it. That is everything that is new with the Galaxy S9's camera and the S9 Plus. It still has all the old stuff. It still has live focus with the dual cameras for taking portrait mode shots, still has some of the stickers and things. But that's your camera reimagined. Now, this isn't the full review of the whole phone, so we'll wait till then to put conclusions on everything and see if it's actually worth it all. But you can probably come to a lot of conclusions yourself. I mean, looking at sample photos, we already know this is going to be one of the top smartphone cameras of this year. It's just a matter of whether it falls at #1 or #2 or #3. But stay tuned to places like Twitter and Instagram, where I'll be posting sample photos as I take them and as I use this phone more, coming up to the full review. But until then, thanks for watching. Talk to you in the next one. Peace.